Okay, we're prepping this bike for the Jack Pine Enduro. The Jack Pine Enduro is going to be running its 86th year. It's the longest running enduro race in the US, and it's certainly one of the toughest. So Chris, tell us about the bike.
KTM makes a really good bike right out of the showroom. I've made a few modifications to it, basic modifications for woods racing. What I've done is I put a spark rester on the exhaust. I've got a pipe guard for rocks and those kind of things. And I've also put some hand guards on. To do well in a national enduro, you have to finish. Careful bike prep is what gets you to that finish line.
We'll start with servicing the air filter. Remove the covers and remove the dirty air filter. Thoroughly clean the filter housing and filter cage. Okay, we have a pre-oiled and clean air filter ready to go. It's a good idea to bring an extra clean filter with you to the track. I like to keep one in a Ziploc bag. Install the clean filter on the cage, making sure it's seated on the locating pins. Insert the filter into the housing, making sure it's seated properly. Then reinstall the retaining clip and filter covers. Start by inspecting the chain and sprockets. Inspect the sprockets for long teeth and worn teeth. Inspect the chain for kinked links. This chain and sprockets are worn out, so we'll replace this chain and sprockets. After removing the chain, inspect all the guides and slides for excessive wear. Remove the countershaft sprocket cover, then remove the C-clip and remove the sprocket. This sprocket is worn out, so let's install a new one. Seat the sprocket on the splines and reinstall the C-clip, making sure that it snaps into the groove. Next, let's remove the rear wheel. Back the chain adjuster off so the axle can be removed. Remove the retaining nut and tap the axle out. Roll the wheel backwards out of the swing arm. Now is a good time to inspect the rear brakes. These pads look good, so they won't need to be replaced. Remove the bolts holding the rear sprocket onto the hub. Then remove the rear sprocket. Clean the mounting surface and then place the new sprocket on the hub. Using the new bolts that came with this sprocket, install the nuts and bolts by hand, then stand the wheel up to tighten them evenly. Install the rear wheel, being careful to guide the rotor into the brake caliper. Tap the axle back in place and slightly snug the axle retainer. Next, we'll roll the new chain over the sprockets and install the O-rings and master link. Then we're going to set the chain slack to 8 to 10 millimeters at the midpoint between the front and rear sprockets. Make sure you adjust the rear wheel evenly. Tighten the axle retainer to lock in the adjustment. Then install the front chain guard. Now we can proceed to inspect all the fluids to make sure they're fresh and full. The coolant looks good and it's up to the fill line. Next, we'll check the clutch and brake master cylinders. This bike is a 2-stroke, so all we need to do now is change the gearbox oil. If it was a 4-stroke, we would need to change the oil and the oil filter as well. Remove the drain plug and drain the oil. Replace the plug and fill the transmission with the correct fluid type. Always measure the amount of oil and don't overfill the transmission. Now let's let Chris show us how he inspects the wheels, spokes, and tires.
We're going to take a look at the spokes now, and it's important that you listen to the sound of the spokes as I strike them. What that's doing is it's setting or giving the tension of the spokes as it's going around. A dull spoke would have just a thud sound. And these all appear to be tight. Right now, what I've got in my tires are Michelin regular tubes. For the Jack Pine Enduro, what I'm going to run are Michelin bib inserts inside in place of the tubes. When I mentioned the Michelin bib mousse, this is what I've got that's going to go inside the tire in place of the tube. These take quite a bit of work, so we're not going to put those in right now. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that this is really a hard foam, and it simulates about 12 pounds of pressure inside the tire. Takes the place of the tube. When I'm running tubes inside my tires, I always make sure I check the tire pressure before I go out and ride. I'd like to have about 12 pounds in the rear 10 to 12 in the front, depending on what kind of situation and what type of riding I'm doing. That's where I'd like to be. Two strokes are traditionally very hard on spark plugs. What you find is the slow riding, the tight woods, those kind of things, it tends to load up the spark plug very similar to what you see here. I'm going to go ahead and replace this spark plug with an Autolite Extreme Sport 0.6mm fine wire iridium enhanced spark plug. Iridium spark plugs like these help my bike start on the first kick and are more resistant to fouling.
On this bike, the factory plug wrench that comes with the bike's toolkit works the best. Check and adjust the spark plug gap to factory specifications. Install the spark plug, then make sure to seat the spark plug boot tight. Now we're going all around the bike to check all fasteners for tightness. Use wrenches and Allen wrenches as needed to check every single bolt to make sure it's tight. Okay, we got this bike ready for the race. You can see all of our motorcycle teams and find more tips at Autolite.com.